Hey folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tornado Tony Pennycow.
And Psychic Tom Faggot. A whole list of predictions. Just have to ask.
Well.
And that's a good price tonight, free of charge.
Free of charge. Yeah, well, we're gonna do an international long distance call. Does your powers work that far, Tom? Can you
worldwide to the universe?
Yeah, right. We're gonna connect with Francois Botha tonight. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Might have to get him up a little bit early for this if he's not up already. But we talked to him last week through Facebook, and he's got a lot of stuff going on. He's got a little security business he's part of, private security, and also working on a boxing gym setup, which might be accessible online, I believe. We'll talk to him about that. But also, of course, we got to talk to him about his incredible heavyweight career. Fought a who's who of not only legends of the sport at his time, but also at the end of his career, he fought a couple of guys who became pretty good and still are good to this day. They're still fighting. So, lots to talk about. And they call him the White Buffalo. He's from this fought a lot in South Africa area there, and really had a very contentious fight with Mike Tyson before he got knocked out. And Mike Tyson actually admitted after the fight that he purposely tried to break his arm.
Yeah, I remember that quite clearly.
So.
That fight went 5 rounds, and Mike scored the knockout, I think, late in the 5th round. One punch, right hand. But up until that time, you would say both the one. That fight went a total of 14 minutes and 50 seconds. Both the one 14 minutes and 40 seconds, with the exception being the 10 count.
Right. So.
Yep, that's how I remember it. And
what's unreal to me, I'm looking at his record, and who did he fight next? None other than what's up, champ? Shannon Briggs, 31-2 at the time in Atlantic City. Fought him to a majority draw.
Fought him to a draw, yeah, in AC.
And then 2 fights later, it was Lennox Lewis in London.
He got caught pretty early in that one, and Lewis at the time, back in what was that, July 15th, 2000, was just coming off the second round knockout win over Michael Grant. And he was really, and Jesus Christ, who did both the fight back in 2011 was Michael Grant in South Africa. So I can talk to him about that.
Right.
And, but yeah, Lewis at that time was really just steamrolling guys.
And I figured out he didn't have Skype, so
we're gonna lost to Michael Moore in there, I think.
We're gonna be calling him through Facebook, so hopefully it goes well. I don't know if he's done the Facebook calls before, but I'm sure he's probably done it. But anyway, we'll figure it out. And we'll speak to him when we get him on the line, probably about 20 minutes here into the show, a little bit longer. But we got a little bit of boxing to talk about. I didn't mention it last week because I didn't see it on the schedule, but we had a fight that was not only somebody we talked about a lot on the show, but also fought a guy named Jesus. Day Jesus, but Jesus. So none other than Thomas Cornflake Lamanna last Saturday got a win over Juan De Jesus Angulo Gonzalez. That was one of the big fights on BoxRec of recognizing names.
Well, and it's nice to see Cornflake. Back on the winning column. Like I said, a lot of guys from my South Philly gym know him and know him very well. Local kid, and he had a really tough outing about a year ago. I think it was a year ago this coming weekend when he was on the Julian Williams undercard at Temple, and he really took a shellacking. They stopped it, I think, around the 5th or 6th round. And you can tell he was visibly upset. But one thing about, Cornflake is he's not a big puncher. I think he only has a handful of knockouts in his wins, and you can tell he kind of reminds me in a way of like Paulie Malignaggi. He's a good boxer, but once you kind of get him off his rhythm, he's hittable. And in that fight, he was taking a lot of punishment. And you're getting in the 5th, 6th round, you're sort of saying, oh, he's going to win every round going home because he ain't going to knock this guy out. And he's already far enough down, and he's taking a lot of punishment. And then finally, the guy just ramped it up, and they stopped it. So it's good to see him, getting his confidence back and back on the winning trail.
All right. So I know we talked a little bit last week about Mike Tyson's little podcast episode with Logan Paul. And it turns out...
I finally got after that one, Rich. Thanks so much for sending that link. This has just been... when he bit into those mushrooms...
Yeah.
I mean, that was... my God.
I've never in my life have touched those drugs, but I was still in my head going, why doesn't he drink some water? I'm right along with those guys thinking, because just listening to him talk, I'm like, how does he talk like through that? I don't know, it's crazy stuff. But anyway, believe it or not,
he said he liked the seeds in his teeth.
Yeah.
Oh, that was classic. Absolutely classic.
Unreal. I was more impressed, with that he could not only keep up a conversation, but an intelligent conversation while he's munching on them and trying to digest them. Oh man, crazy stuff. Anyway, he turns out he might have a somewhat of a kind of a breakthrough here. If you want to listen to Dana White, there's a big article, you pointed it out to me, and I'd already had it on my radar, Tom, about Spencer Fisher. And the interesting thing is the king, they called him, King Fisher. So one of the most badass birds on the planet. Anyway, make a long story short, he's dealing with some really bad cognitive difficulties right now. He had a very long career, fought a lot of UFC fights. So many, in fact, that I saw him fight in the only UFC fight I ever attended in person, which was paid for by Science. Or it was part of their sponsorship, whatever. I got their seats. And it was right before the holidays, November of, I think it was 2006 or 2007. And he had a 3-round war with Frankie Edgar. And it was, main card fight. I remember seeing it. And it was the same card that Joe Lauzon had a good win on. It was very quick. It was like second or third fight after I walked into the arena, and I just remember he just got him he got his back standing, jumped on his back standing, and it was like one of those, I think they call it a lion's kill when you do the rear naked choke standing. So I had never seen that before.
He was, Spencer was a wild man, and he first came to fame before he got to the UFC. He had a 5-round war with Josh Neer.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, Rich, if you were following MMA.
I remember Neer. He was a badass.
Probably around 2003-ish. And then Josh Neer went on to defeat our former guest, Forrest Betts. But that fight with Neer almost caused a riot because they both had some very rabid fans, alcohol-fueled, of course. And I think it may still be on YouTube. I haven't watched it in a long time, but he never seemed to have a boring fight, but boy, is he paying for it now.
So apparently, part of the work with what's called the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health, which the UFC has contributed to quite a bit financially, part of their research is giving microdoses of psychedelics. So maybe Mike Tyson is on to something. At least for brain damage. I don't know. It's interesting, and I've actually seen that before. I've seen that years ago on some documentaries about people that deal with migraines on a daily basis, and they literally grow their own mushrooms, and one guy goes into a coma, basically sleeps for an entire day when he doses himself, and then doesn't need them for a month. There's other people that grind them down into tablets. There's definitely, a long history of mushroom use, whether it's the psychedelic part or whatever. And crazy, I just thought of it now, it ties right into it, but the little group I was part of for a week up there in Maine when I was getting serious about training before I got the shingles, those guys were called the Berserkers. And I looked that up, and the Berserkers were guys back in the day who literally ate the toxic mushrooms and got so hyped up for battle, they kind of thought they were possessed. And there's the fucking crazy thing about these mushrooms back in that period was, only the shaman in the village would usually eat these mushrooms, and then he would piss, and the villagers would drink his piss. That's how powerful they were. And they would all get screwed up. So, it's unbelievable history. Even Christmas supposedly ties into mushrooms if you read enough into it. The red and white mushroom is supposedly the toxic one, and the reindeers would eat it and they would run faster. So that's where the flying reindeer comes in. It's just unreal how it ties into a lot of different things.
Yeah, the ones that the Vikings took, I read it. I believe it was pronounced Amantia muscara.
Yeah,
you got to be careful with that stuff. A lot of poisonous. I mean, it's nothing to fool around with at all.
Oh yeah. Well, I know from the tree business that there's certain mushrooms that will kill a tree. I know for a fact I see a lot of those. As soon as you see those mushrooms on a tree, that tree's either dead or dying. But I haven't eaten a lot of mushrooms. Maybe the chicken of the woods here and there. That's as far as I go. Anyway. So the other part of this brain study story is Dana White put his foot in his mouth as usual and said something stupid. It's already got people memeing it, but he basically kind of passed off the Spencer Fisher story, said, there's going to be a lot of Spencer Fishers in the future. It's not the first, it's not going to be the last. And, it comes with the territory. It's part of the game. But I've talked about this for multiple episodes prior to this, and it's different with the UFC. It's different from any other organization, especially under the Fertittas, which some of that mentality is passed on because Dana White's still running things, and that's in the spirit of what the Fertittas did with it. But there was this sense of, if you don't, number one, put on a show, you are not getting the bonus, you're not getting kept on the roster, and you're not going to get good opportunities to fight. So, very incentive-based. You've got to go out there and take risks and make it sloppy and get that fight of the night bonus, that knockout of the night bonus, or whatever. And if those parameters didn't exist, these fighters would maybe not take as many risks, and they maybe would have fought smarter fights. And I think anybody can make that argument to the jury that you could possibly take the maybe out of it and it would be guaranteed. You look at some organizations like the One Organization. They look at martial arts in a completely different eye. They take a different eye at it, and it's all about respect for the opponent and the process and the game, and it's totally different. It'd be interesting to lay out the studies and say, well, how many knockouts are over there and how many submissions are over there as opposed to the UFC. I think you'll find that even in the UFC catalog of videos and greatest fights, how many knockouts are you going to see on the top 100 fights according to the UFC as opposed to submissions? Probably way more knockouts, because that's what they think the people want to see, and that's what they've promoted. And they literally, it sort of admitted under the radar that knockout of the night bonus wasn't a good idea a few years ago because they got rid of it. Now it's fight of the night. So,
that's funny, Rich, because they got rid of submission of the night a long time before they got rid of knockout of the night. That's interesting. That's a very good point to bring up.
So, I think what's slowing it down, I posted this on Facebook, is the fact that MMA fighters are independent contractors. So you almost have to do something like the class action suit on the Monopoly is doing, where you're basically going through class action status certification, which takes a lot of time. A lot of different law firms are involved in that case. Probably a lot of money spent pro bono at this point, because I don't think the UFC fighters are paying out of pocket who are involved. But they've designated as a class, so now you're fighting on behalf of thousands of people. There's going to be appeals. It's going to be a rough fight, but I think if that comes up with anywhere close to a sufficient settlement for these guys, right on the heels of that, somebody's going to come in and know enough to spend 4 or 5 years working on a concussion lawsuit or a cognitive difficulty lawsuit, or whatever you want to call it. But it's a good thing that the UFC is submitting money to studies and all that, but it's kind of like time for a little bit more than that, like guaranteeing their health care. If you've had more than a certain amount of fights in the UFC, maybe contribute to some of their health care costs. And the crazy thing is, after this recent sale of the UFC to a lot of different people, they've sold stock to a lot of different athletes out there, professional athletes in other sports, who kind of, if the UFC looks bad, makes them look bad too. They own it. They own parts of it. I think Tom Brady's part owner. So it's kind of time to do the right.
What about you mentioned concussion laws. That would be a pretty steep burden, considering the basic nature of the sport.
Right.
Wouldn't it? Okay.
That's where the bonus thing comes in.
They would win.
And the intimidation.
We have to change things.
And you look at cases like that cross over with the antitrust suit, where you got John Fitch getting thrown out of the organization for not being entertaining enough, even though he was winning fights. And then, also they kind of pushed him out because he wouldn't sign an agreement to sign his lifetime rights away. But there's just stuff like that. And there's consistent video of Dana White trashing fighters who don't fit the company mentality of just go out there and brawl. He just constantly promoted that type of atmosphere. That's what he wanted. And that's okay in WWE. That's great, because it's all faked. But in real fighting, you want guys to go in there without that hovering over their shoulders, that they have to fight a certain way or they're not going to advance through the roster and get opportunities and get higher payments and bonuses that change their lives. Like some of these guys, $50,000 will change your whole life. So I just don't like it. I don't like that attitude of you have to go out there and put on a show or you're out, And their contracts are already under scrutiny with the antitrust case as far as how ridiculous they are. They don't need additional pressure on top of what's already written into their contract. That's ridiculous. But I get the argument that you signed up for this, okay? Because even any of us who have competed in an official event, there's a chance you could get hurt. I'm not saying that...
Or worse.
Yeah. Or die.
Or worse.
We all know, we've reported on that for years. Certain deaths in the sport, mostly boxing, but there's been some MMA deaths too, just not in the UFC. And you have to commend the UFC for that alone. That they've never had a, devastating injury, or anybody go into a coma from a fight, anybody break a neck, nothing. So they've done something right there, but it's always after the fact, after you hang up the gloves, it seems, with these guys. And the one case that comes in mind brings back memories from the recent incident where one of these fighters stabbed 2 of his sisters recently, a UFC fighter, in Palm Springs, just recently, and said that some greater power told him to do it. So obviously mental illness issues. We know what happened with the Chris Benoit case, killed his whole family. But there was also a case of a football player who was dealing with concussion issues and dementia, and he shot himself in front of the police in his chest just so they could study his brain. He wrote a note about, wanting them to study his brain because he knew his brain was fucked up. Dave Dewerson or something like that, yeah.
Wasn't it Junior Seau that played for the Chargers all the years?
Junior Seau,
I think that's what it was.
He killed himself too, but I think it was after this case. This was like the case that kind of put the concussion lawsuit on the map. Because it was like right before that kicked off. I think it was Dave Dewerson. That name's popping out of my head for something. I'm having a medium moment.
I know we had Andre Ward that played. Not Andre Ward. Andre Ward that played for the Eagles also committed suicide probably 15 or so years ago.
Yeah. So it's an issue, and it's coming to the forefront, and they're going to have to deal with it. I'm kind of wary that they will do it properly. I mean, Dana White came out and said not only that, this is going to happen again, and there's always been a chance that it'll happen. He said, basically, it happens to the best of us, even me. Like, he acted like he has brain damage from fighting. And that
Boxercise.
Yes.
Boxercise.
So the memes obviously came out with the boxercise pictures, and oh man, it was good. But
yeah,
there's a lot of fighters that will still just disregard that and be like, "Oh, Dana built the sport, and he's great, and he's done so many good things." And well, he's still lying about having brain damage from fighting because he doesn't. He got an ear issue, Meniere's disease, right? Claims that it was from his boxing trainer back in the day slapping him in the ear with a punch. So he's saying that's brain damage, basically, with his latest quote. Like, oh yeah, if anybody who's fought when they were young has brain damage, which is bullshit because I fought when I was young and old, and I don't have brain damage.
Yeah, here's what I would think is funny. Well, I mean, I might. I mean, I can't say that. But, they always have an old saying, those who can't teach.
Right.
They always talk about, like, a lot of times, why do you always see a lot of your best NFL coaches are backup quarterbacks? Now, we just fired ours, because I think it's idiotic, but that's beside the point. But, Doug Peterson was a backup quarterback. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl, yeah, he was a backup quarterback, and his offensive coordinator was a backup quarterback. A lot of times your backup quarterbacks make good coaches because what do? They sit there with a clipboard the whole time. They're not actually playing. They're watching and they're helping the coach. They're basically being the coach. So a lot of times you'll get guys that maybe aren't good athletes that make great agents. They love the sport, they just can't do it. They're not good athletes, but they make good managers. Sometimes you have some fighters that maybe they were good fighters, but they weren't great. And they could be championship level, but they turn around and make fantastic trainers.
Freddie Roach.
Freddie Roach, exactly. I was going to say two guys. I was going to say Freddie Roach, and I was going to say Buddy McGirt. Buddy McGirt was a very good boxer. He was a multiple-time world champion, but he was very technically proficient, where he wasn't spectacular in anything, but he did everything well. Right. And he could, really stress fundamentals. Freddie Roach, same thing. He fought for a world title, but, he was never, the cream of the crop. Then you had other guys, Freddie Roach's original trainer was Eddie Futch. Eddie Futch became a trainer because he had a heart condition, and he couldn't compete anymore. So he just sat there, he loved the sport so much, became a trainer. I would see guys at the gym when I would train, and a lot of them would sit there, and as soon as they were done their training part, they would kind of morph into like a coaching role. Even if it was little things like helping guys take the gloves off, timing a guy doing a round, just getting in the ring and maybe even just motioning and just doing, some footwork. Right. Those are the guys that turned out to be, really good trainers. Like the guy that originally was training Sonny Canto, Hassan Williams. Hassan loved the sport. He was there. He would do his training. He'd do his heavy bag, do his speed bag, get in the ring, do his sparring, and then he stayed. He stayed and he watched and he learned.
Wow. We got some boxing news before we get to guest on the show there, Francois Botha. We got Jose Canseco now coming into the celebrity boxing circle, squared circle here again. Wants to fight a Barstool Sports intern and then claims to want Logan Paul next. He's been calling him out for months. The intern at Barstool Sports, I don't know if this is his real name, probably not. It's called Billy Football. Probably not. That's a TMZ story going around. This is the crazy one. Conor McGregor is one victory away from fighting for a boxing title, according to the WBC. And apparently his next opponent in boxing is going to be Manny Pacquiao. It's almost a done deal. But he's still got to get by Poirier next weekend. Is it next weekend? I think it's next weekend.
Well, what if he doesn't? How would that affect the Pacquiao fight?
I don't know if it would, but...
I think the Pac-Man would really like that fight.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem too anxious to want to fight Spence. Not that I blame him, but I mean, he just seems like
every boxer wants
really
that fight. Come on.
Yeah.
Automatic advantage. Automatic advantage.
Yeah.
I don't care how much Conor trains, and has relevant experience in MMA. You cannot catch up to the skills of a boxer like that.
Not against that level.
Unless
that's top of the food chain.
Unless Manny's really too far gone. But hopefully we don't have to find that out from Conor beating him.
We haven't seen any evidence of that.
Yeah.
And even if he is, my money's on Manny.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. This fight between Manny and McGregor would be, obviously more action-packed than Mayweather-McGregor. Because Mayweather, like I said, and I've said before, he fought, in the beginning, looked like a tactical mistake, moving to his right. You're not supposed to move the right against the southpaw. But then you think about it, you're like, wait a minute. Everybody McGregor's trained against, because he's only had limited boxing skills, limited boxing training, and limited sparring, they're going to expect this guy to move to his left, like you're supposed to. So he's anticipating that, and the guy goes the opposite direction. I'm like, wait, no, you're not supposed to do that. So I'm sure that threw him off a little bit. And then Mayweather just, bit his time. He's like, I'll give away 2 or 3 rounds. I don't give a shit. Let this guy throw punches. I'll sit there and give away the first few rounds, and I'll figure him out, and I'll, just drown him. I'll slow suffocate him, and that's what he did. Starting in the 5th and 6th rounds when he started landing those single straight right hands. Boom. Then he'd throw a left hook in there, and then he'd throw 2 right hands, and then it was like he just progressively wore him down. What would make this a better fight, but more of a, and I don't want to say toss-up, but more of a puncher's chance, would be Manny's aggressiveness. Manny's going to be Manny. He's going to come out there, he's got some fast hands, he's going to be aggressive. So he's going to try to, take the guy out. But that also leaves him potentially open for a counterpunch. Could he walk into a McGregor punch? Absolutely. And we've seen Manny get knocked out before. So I think it'll be a more action-packed fight. It definitely won't go 10 rounds. And obviously the money's got to be on Manny. But, there is more of an opportunity for McGregor to land, a decisive punch in this fight.
Right. All right, we got UFC here to talk about. Coming up, first fight on ABC. ESPN is obviously a partner, kind of under the same umbrella there as ABC. I think they're the parent company, ABC. But Max Holloway and Calvin Kattar in the main event. It's going to be over on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. And Calvin's a Boston area guy. I've actually had communications with him in the past when he was kind of up and coming in the beginning. He's had a couple great fights, less than great fights in the UFC so far, but they're giving him a big name here, Max Holloway, and a main event. So I'm excited to see what he does with it, and I'm rooting for him. 22-4. Max is 21-6. I really hope we don't see what happened with the other big legend that recently fought, that came in like a ghost of himself, Tony Ferguson. I hope we don't see Max come in looking like that. But I don't know. He troubles me sometimes when I watch him. Speaking about concussions and stuff, because he's one of those fighters who will stick his face out there to get a guy to punch him, and then just so he can punch back while the guy's hands are down. He puts his chin out there a lot, and it's like a braggadocious thing more than strategy. Sometimes he just wants to show he can take it, which is a very dangerous style. But for some people, they just love it. Makes for a great fight for them. I don't know. We'll see if it works out this time against Calvin. But Carlos Condit and Matt Brown in the co-main event. You talk about a couple guys who've seen some wars. Carlos, nicknamed the Natural Born Killer. He's 31-13. Fighting Matt Brown, 22-17 there. A lot of experience. It's going to be a tough one to pick a winner here, but if I had to, I'd say Carlos. I have to go with Carlos. He had a good fight his last time out. Won me some money, actually. I believe it was one of my winning FanDuel cards. Anyway, Santiago Ponzinibbio, 27-3, fighting Jingliang Li, who's 17-6. And one of the Knockout of the Year candidates from last year, Joaquin Buckley, coming in at 12-3, fighting Alessio Di Chirico, who's 12-5. A little bit bigger name for him. But right in the mix of the main card now. It's good stuff. Punahele Soriano, 7-0, fighting Dusko Todorovic, and somebody's always got to go fight. Todorovic is 10-0, so that's a pretty decent one. Phil Hawes fighting Nasserine Imavov, both of them 9-2, nice and easy one. Fifth fight of the night, Yanan Wu, 11-3, fighting Jocelyn Edwards Laboriel, who's 9-2, in a female fight. Carlos Felipe in the fourth fight, 9-1, fighting Justin Taffa, who's 4-1. And then we got some experienced fighters here in the third fight. 17-5, David Zawada fighting Ramazan Emaev, who's 19-4. And Ultimate Fighter alum Sarah Morris, 6-6, fighting Vanessa Milo, 10-8 in the second fight. In first fight, Jacob Kilburn, 8-3, fighting Austin Lingo, who's 7-1. All right.
That Brown Condit fight's about 5 years too late.
Right.
I don't know how much either one of them have. They've both been through so many wars. But maybe it'll be entertaining. Maybe they both have a couple good rounds left. But 5 years ago, that fight's even longer. That fight's been talked about for a long time. But
well, some of these guys are on their fourth or fifth loser leaves town fight type of matchup. So, I don't know. We might see somebody retire after this one. I know Carlos has been on the fence before, recently. He was talked about retirement, but...
Well, he won his last one. And so, yeah, but you're right. I mean, these guys, it is loser leave town, you think.
We'll find out. All right, we're going to connect with Francois Botha, hopefully. This works. I'm on speaker. Hopefully we're not waking up the white buffalo. Try again.
Mm-hmm.
Not reachable. Well, I hope it's not an international thing. Facebook. I never tried to make an international call on Facebook. Could be a signal thing. But it does still say he hasn't been active in like 14 hours, so he might be sleeping.
You know, South Africa had some pretty good heavyweights that came along in the late seemed to come out of nowhere. Of course, we know about Coetzee when he knocked out Spinks in the first round. And then there was another one, Kelly Condit. But I'd like to ask Francois if he had any interaction with those guys. They were kind of like the first generation.
Right.
So we can get him on.
I don't know if it always says that when a person doesn't answer, but it's telling me not reachable. So we may have to ultimately arrange different method of communication. But we got his information. I wish
so while you guys are doing that, if you give me 5 minutes, I need to go refill my drink because I'm dehydrated from not feeling too good today.
You're parched. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. He might be sleeping. I tried to set up a different time before. I told him any time, but then I was like, well, would you like to do next Thursday? And he agreed to it. So one more chance here. Try to get it through. And then we'll just wrap it up with some other stuff, I guess. Hope we can set it up for next week. Francois. Anyway. I guess we have to have a satellite phone or something. I do have his direct number. If I upgrade my Skype subscription, I might be able to call him that way next week. But I don't think I have time to do that right now. We'll keep this thing open. If I see him come on, we'll try again. I see that little green Facebook dot. That's the only thing that makes me think maybe he's just not awake. Forgot about it. Probably should have reminded him yesterday instead of like 12 hours ago. Anyway. So we got another big story in the UFC circles going around. Their big drug czar, Jeff Nowitzki, has decided to abandon the anti-doping policy as it goes for marijuana, which makes things interesting for fighters like Nate Diaz, who apparently Dana White is working to bring back. In recent conversations he's talked about, people are going to be excited about which fight is coming with him. But they still haven't convinced, I guess this is a USADA thing, they have not convinced the regulators in some of these other states to go along with this plan. So, basically means only where the UFC is allowed to do their own testing, like Abu Dhabi, probably. You're going to see a lot of fighters want to fly over there to fight. It's going to be interesting. But they basically said that, it's something where they're looking at it only if they use the substance for performance-enhancing purposes. Because I guess they're finding out a lot of the situations, like when they literally ask the fighters, like, when did you smoke? Or when did you partake in marijuana? And they say, like, a week ago, maybe 2. And if you're going to take them at their word, it's kind of ridiculous to think that that's going to affect them on fight night. So what he says is, while we want to continue to prevent athletes from competing under the influence of marijuana, we have learned that blood and/or urine levels of carboxy-THC have little to no scientific correlation to impairment. The bottom line is that in regards to marijuana, we care about what an athlete consumed the day of a fight, not days or weeks before a fight, which has often been the case in our historic positive THC cases. So there it is. Interesting development.
That's awful strange. They're acting like that's some kind of performance enhancer.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that most guys would want their opponent really stoned.
He wouldn't feel anything, right? I guess. Could beat the hell out of him. He'd be smiling at you. I've often thought Clay Guida was high before his fights. Just the look of him. Especially that one where he danced around the ring for all 3 rounds. And
well, I think for most people, it really inhibits aggression.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I don't know. Everyone's different.
Yeah.
Maybe the stuff's different nowadays.
All right. Well, we're going to try to set up the Francois Botha interview for next week, and I will definitely give him a heads up a little sooner next time. Maybe we'll have to do a late start and interview him at 10. Or at another time. I don't know what your schedule is, or Tony's schedule is, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'll be getting busy, but 10 o'clock would be fine for me, because I'd love to talk to him, and my hours are going to start picking up now, so the later the better.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I mean, I even want to kind of get into the security thing. I mean, that's interesting to me, like private security. He's got to have some stories on that. Especially, it sounds like he does it for high-profile people. So he might not even be able to share the names with us, but I'm sure he's got some stories. So I guess until next week, when we figure that out, we're going to say sayonara. Tony, you still there?
All right, guys.
Tony still with us? Here. All right. Get better, buddy.
Yeah, I think I just like an idiot mixed some in my protein drink today. It's vegetable powder, and I don't think it agreed with me very well.
Uh-oh. Somebody put some X-Lax in your protein powder.
That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like.
All right. Well, hopefully you have plenty of toilet paper.
Oh, I forgot that. Hey, Tom.
Stocked up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know. Thank God I stocked up a few months ago. Did you see the video I sent you a few weeks ago when I stumbled on that surprise Christmas gift?
Yeah, that was classic.
Yeah. When I first opened it, I was telling my dad about Cameo. He's like, "What's this Cameo?" I'm like, "Oh, it's really cool stuff." I'm like, I was telling different things. I'm like, "Here, I'll show you some of the videos from this one comedian we like." And the second one I clicked, they gave this kid with the Tony Tornado. I'm like, "Who's the asshole with the same name as me?" And then I guess from your guys on Dominic, I'm like, "Jesus Christ, you got a goddamn named Dominic too?" Oh my God, this is amazing. And he's like, "Oh, we do this together. We do this together." He loves coming to your pool, and I'm like, "Oh shit, this is for me." So when I saw his father the next day on Christmas Eve, I was like, "Yeah, nobody can get one by me, not even Dominic." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, I know." He's like, "How do you know?" No, I'm like, "Your cousin told me." I didn't even know he knew. I'm like, "Oh yeah, he spilled the beans," which was totally untrue. Well, that comedian that did the video, I was on the phone with him the other night. He was doing something like we do, a in-studio podcast, and I called in. He was asking about, being Italian, and if any Italian kids ever ran away from home when they were young. So I had to tell him, when I was years old, that I ran away from home because I was being oppressed. And I ran down to the park that I would go to every day. Every day I went to this park. That's where I ran away to. And it was around 2 o'clock. I stayed till about 5. I went home for dinner, and then I ran away again, back to the same park. And then I was like, "Oh shit, now we've got a problem." And it happens every day. The sun sets. It gets dark. Now I'm thinking, we got two potential issues here. One, Jason could come out of the woods with his hockey mask and his machete and come after me. And that's bad. Number two, another big figure could come down the street and exit the park, and that would be a 5'8" Italian figure known as my dad, and that's more terrifying than Jason would have been. So I said, you know what? Okay, I made my point. I think they've learned their lesson, and I went home. I told the guy a story. He laughed, and he goes, I'm like, yeah, Philadelphia. And he goes, oh, well, you're from Philly, where I told him where I lived and where I grew up. And I said, but as a fighter, he's like, yeah, you know, and I said something about South Philly. And they're like, you know, yeah, South Philly. I'm like, listen, I was never from South Philly. I never lived in South Philly. I spent a lot of time there, and my gym was there. So as a marketing thing, I was announced as a South Philly fighter, you know, because it just worked. I said, you know, and the narrative fits so well because I'm Italian, South Philly, Rocky. I was the only white kid in my gym, you know, and I'm like, everything like fit the narrative so perfectly. You just had to leave out a few minor details. And
I'll never forget one time I ran away from home and I filled a pillowcase full of all my toys. And I don't even remember where I was going, but I made it like 2 or 3 blocks down the street before my dad got home and drove down the street and came and got me. I was already getting tired of the damn weight of the friggin' pillowcase.
Yeah.
By the time he picked me up, so I was like, all right, I made my point.
No food, no drink. I totally didn't. I brought no food, no drink, no toys, no clothes. I brought myself. And I sat there for 3 hours, and I'm like, if they're all worried, I went to that park every day. If they would have came down there and saw me at the park, they would, what are you doing? Going to the jungle gym or playing football? Or, you know, what are you doing what you do every day?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a shame that we didn't get Francois on the phone tonight because, like I said, he had fought Michael Grant late in his career, and it was, you know, a year ago that I saw Michael Grant because today's the 1-year anniversary that we lost Hank Cisco.
Yeah.
So we all been paying tribute to him on social media and everything, and I actually a picture that his daughter had sent me a few months ago of him with Rocky Marciano, and I posted that on the One Rocky Marciano page.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll connect with him at some point. I just had a feeling, you know, 6:30 in the morning. I don't care where you are. It's early for an interview, so we'll connect with him. But
like right now with my work situation, 6:30 in the morning would have been an oh hell no because I start at 8, right? I usually don't wake up till 7. So I wake up 7, get a quick little workout in.
Yeah, so we might have to.
It's not like I got to get changed or anything.
We might have to bump it to another time, or just remind him a day earlier next time to set his alarm. Might be one of those situations like I posted on Facebook there, Tony. His alarm didn't go off.
I'm looking at it.
Where, did you see that cat video that I posted?
I saw something with the with the because they played Eye of the Tiger.
No. That was what I sent you. I'm talking what I posted.
Isn't that the one
I posted on Facebook this GIF of a cat where it's like, you know, under a blanket and it comes out and shows its face and then it like jolts and runs. Like it just, and it says, you know, when you look at your alarm clock and realize that you're late. Your alarm didn't go off. But yeah, probably one of those situations.
I was just scrolling.
And next week, if we can set it up next week, we'll either do it at the same time or maybe a little bit later to help him out. And 7 o'clock maybe would help him. So that would be 10 o'clock for us.
Maybe I'll get an extra one time. And Rich, you wouldn't have remembered him because my senior year he had to opt out of the season because he had hernia surgery. But this guy was a teammate of mine for 3 years at Lock Haven named Jason Fletcher. He was 1996 national champion and a 2-time All-American. Great guy, still very good friends with. And he'll tell you a great one. He and I had this chemistry class, which
where'd you go?
Clowns.
Oh, there he is.
It was class at 10 o'clock or 9:30. But on Tuesday you had a lab. You had to go at 8 o'clock. Well, the first class of the semester, the very first one, I ever slept. So I come strolling in with this big sleep on my face, like 20 minutes late. And the professor, like, you're late. I said, listen. I said, and I'm laughing, thinking it's a joke. And I can see why he was pissed off. He thought I was being disrespectful. But he's like, you're late. I'm like, listen. I said, here's the problem. I said, I set my alarm for 7 o'clock p.m., not 7 o'clock a.m.
Yeah.
Get up and be on time for my class, then maybe you need to get into another class. And he called me out right in front of the whole class. And I'm sitting there like, this cocky 19-year-old. I'm like, what are you looking at, old man, you know? But basically, if he would have really wanted to fuck with me, he was one call with Dr. Cox, and I really would have been screwed. But Jason, the whole time, the rest of the semester, would make fun of me. Like, every Monday practice, would be like, Joe, you know, class is at 8 o'clock a.m. tomorrow. To set your alarm, you know, be there on time. I ended up getting a good grade in the class, and the guy apologized to me later. He's like, listen, I didn't want to, you know, call you out like that or single you out like that, but I'm trying to make, you know, an example to the class to be on time and whatever. And he goes, and you come in the first day late. And I'm like, yo, man, it's cool. But I'm like, so Jason, I'll tell you that one, which was great laugh. We used to heckle this professor in not the lab part, but the classroom part. Every Tuesday without fail, we fucked with this guy, and he never picked up on it. Oh, maybe.
Oh, fading out, Tony. Tony went to La La Land. Did you hit mute, Tony? Where'd you go?
No,
There he is.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. What'd you do? Drop your phone?
I'm still. No, I didn't drop anything.
Oh, it's like just went out cold there for like 30 seconds.
No, I'm definitely on.
All right, now we can hear you.
No. Maybe the feed broke.
Yeah.
But all I know, I was like, tonight I'm gonna, you know, I took stuff from my stomach today to settle it, and you know, tomorrow I'm gonna get up, do a little walking, keep it light during the day, and then hopefully by the afternoon I can get my dad for his 3 times a week DDP yoga.
Sweet.
And then because then Saturday, you know, I got to go drop Dominic's Rocky trunks off and his speed bag.
I'm going to do my workout program tomorrow, too. It's called P90 Tree. I do it every day.
What?
P90 Tree. Because I do tree work.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Splitting wood. It's P90 Tree.
Yeah. P90 Tree. I like that.
You could say that's what you're doing at the tree lot. Doing my workout.
So,
P90 Tree. Got to sell 90 trees that day, though.
That's a great, you know, Rich, and we always joke about that. You know.
Oh, there you go again. Bouncing out.
Or, you know, moving. Yeah, it's just great. Like, our owner, like, his brother-in-law passed away, so his sister is dating another guy now. Guy has a 19-year-old son. Big mountain-looking kid, right? Big beard, long ponytail. So he shows up. I'm like, okay. And, you know, trees are getting dropped off, and we're hauling them, and we're moving them, and we're sorting them. 10 minutes later, this guy's sitting down, and he looks really distressed. And what's wrong with this guy? So the owner goes up to him, and he goes, yo, man, you okay? This kid's 19. 19. I was 42, I think. And he's like, I've never worked like this before. He's like, it's moving trees. Then you're doing anything, you're a young guy. You know, you look like you're about to croak. He's like, yeah. He goes, well, what do you do every day? He goes, I just sit home and play video games. He goes, do you have a job? No, because he's like, no, I don't have my high school diploma. Yeah. He's like, well, you better do something. He goes, you just can't sit at home the rest of your life and play video games. You know, and he goes, well, I think I'm going to get, like, whatever. He goes, but I don't want to work at Walmart. He's like, well, you know, you don't think, like, you know, the medical association's going to come knocking on your door asking you to be a brain surgeon. Like, yo, I forget what his name was, Dan or Dave or something.
Well, actually,
do this emergency brain surgery for it?
He might be a good fit for the new government programs that are coming, because supposedly China is working on like a cyborg army type of thing. So basically computerized militia, and it's obviously we're getting to that technology point where it's possible. So now France, I just read the other day, is deciding we're going to be the first country to do shit that China's doing just to be able to compete with China someday. So they're getting into it. And, you know, of course, the U.S. is probably not telling anybody, but they're probably already into it. Crazy. But that's why, probably, because kids are getting lazy. They're getting lazy, and they just want to deal with computers. It's a very technological age.
Yeah, the French cyborg military, are they fully trained in throwing up the white flag?
That's why they need the freaking robotic force. They know their people don't want to fight. It's funny. They got it under control. They got worse riots than us half the time. Jeez. Yeah. With their payment things and their posterity measures, I think they call them.
The owner would look at me, and would be a nonverbal communication. But I would grab 2 trees, and I would start running in high steps. Like, that's the initiative that we want here. He's like, fill this kid up, embarrass him. And then he'll turn to him and he goes, I got a guy who's 42 years old, he's double your age. And he goes, and he's doubling your work output. But you're right.
Yeah, they want to sit there and look at their phones all day.
That is social media.
I feel like I'm in dad mode right now, as they would say on Letterkenny. Dad mode. Oh, 8 kids today!
She goes, you know he's only 4. I said, yeah, I know. I looked at my poster, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, I wrote that he's 4. He's buying himself for a 14-year-old. That's speed 6 and above. 2.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. Call it a night.
But when he hits it, he wants to palm it. I'm like, no, kid. And his father's like, honey, don't get embarrassed of your nephew. And I'm like, well, I'm getting embarrassed. I'm like, because this kid, you know, he thinks this is fun and this is serious. I got to train him to be a world champion.
Yeah.
Then we get mad because.
Well, you're going to be real mad if he turns into a basketball player, because isn't it a combo basketball net too? What if he turns into a basketball player? Then you're going to be real pissed.
Oh, yeah, no. He's getting the speed bag, and that's his only choice.
Oh, okay.
When we get mad at our one friend, like, we grew up with her, and she's become good friends with Mike's wife. And she'll come over there, and, like, she's always, like, picking him up and everything. So when he falls down, he knows, like, she'll run over to him and pick him up and kiss the boo-boo and all that. We're, like, kissing boo-boos. She's like, yeah, but come on, guys. And we're like, me and Mike are like, knock it the fuck off. We're like, turning him into a pussy. You know, and I'm like, listen. I love it. I got the 10 count, and I better get my ass up. And Mike's like, that's what I do to him. I give him the 10 count, and even if he's crying, he always gets up. But now, Jen runs over and wants to kiss the boo-boo, and then he's like, Jen. We're like, Jen, sit the fuck down. You know, don't pussy this kid. You know, and she's like, come on, guys, you're being jerks. We're like, we don't care, go outside.
It's a tough guy.
You know.
He'll be a tough guy.
Yeah, we're like...
He'll thank you when he's world champion. Right?
You know, I got a lot of work to do. So, like, you know, they said on the one, they're like, what do you do if a kid hits you at school? Can I tell him that's not nice? We're like, no. Yeah, pop him one back.
All right.
I got a lot of work. Well, this weekend I start with the speed bag. I'm going to dress up like Mickey.
There you go.
Maybe I'll just like Paulie.
All right, buddy. Till next week.
All right, guys.
Say sayonara.